From Adam to Abraham, you've got 2,000 years. Abraham to Jesus, you have 2,000 years. Jesus to us, you've got about 2,000 years. That's 6,000 years. 6,000 years that Satan has been ruling this earth since Adam. Now the Bible talks in Revelation in the end about a 1,000-year millennial reign, a kingdom that's going to happen on the earth where Christ rules on the earth. Okay, you understand that he's waiting for the people to say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. There's a fullness of this time of the Gentiles when the gospel is going to preach to all the earth, and then the end's going to come. But isn't it crazy that this has been going on for 6,000 years? Remember the pattern: 6 days, a day of rest; 6 years, a year of rest; 6,000 years. Isn't it perfectly the time set up for the 1,000-year rest where Christ reigns on the earth and restores things? Okay, whenever we talk about end times, we have to be very careful because there's different ways that people interpret how things are going to happen at the end. So I'll be first to admit, look, I am sharing one possibility. Now, I think I'm right, but it's one possibility. And I could be off on this, but my point is we have to at least admit it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy that a nation could be scattered for 1,800 years and then suddenly come back. And it just so happens to be the one nation that God made a covenant with. And then talk about the language. I mean, you gotta understand, no one spoke Hebrew for 1,800 years. It was a dead language, and now suddenly it's the national language. Who does that? Who revives an 1,800-year-old language and brings it back to where everyone's speaking in Hebrew out there now? It's amazing. It's unique. We don't see anything like this in all of human history. And there's actually a passage in the New Testament, Romans chapter 11, and it gives us insight into why things have been happening like this in the country and why the current events are happening today. If you look at verses 28 and 29, he says this: as regards the gospel, they are enemies for your sake. But as regards election, they are beloved for the sake of their forefathers. For the gifts and the calling of God are irrevocable. God is saying, I get it. They rejected my son. They reject the good news. And so in regards to the gospel, they're enemies for your sake. But he says, as regards to election, they're still beloved because of the forefathers. Why? Because the gifts and the calling of God are irrevocable. So even as they reject the gospel, God says, I made a covenant with Abraham. And he explains what's happening, even what's happening up until this day. If you look at verses 25 and 26, he goes, lest you be wise in your own sight, I do not want you to be unaware of this mystery, brothers. A partial hardening has come upon Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles has come in. And in this way, all Israel will be saved. He says, I want to tell you a mystery because you never would have figured this out. But God actually specifically has hardened them. This hardening has come upon them, but it's a partial hardening until the fullness of the Gentiles has come in. So they're going to reject him, but it's for a period of time until all the Gentiles, the non-Jews, start to follow. And this goes exactly with what Jesus said when he rose from the grave in Acts chapter 1 and verse 7. The disciples say, okay, you just came back from the dead. Is this the time you're finally going to restore the kingdom of Israel? And Jesus goes, it's not for you to know. He goes, but you're going to receive power when the Holy Spirit comes upon you, and you're going to be my witnesses in Jerusalem and Judea and Samaria and to the ends of the earth, because that's what I told Abraham. I said you'd be a blessing to the whole world. This is what Revelation 7 talks about in verse 9, how there's going to be people from every nation on the earth worshiping God. This was the promise, and God says there's going to be a partial hardening of Israel until that time.